All right, everyone, welcome back into another NFL DFS video. Going to be breaking down the Week 3 preview and first look build. Let's go ahead and get into it. But first, just a quick recap from last week. It was another really good week. If you guys took advantage of the first look build the first 2 weeks, you've really been doing well. And even during the preseason as well. Continued a nice stretch of NFL DFS thus far. Been pretty easy to predict thus far. Thankfully, that's a lot due to some of the soft pricing that we've been getting on a lot of key players like Jordan Love, Nico Collins, two players that we've really been going out of our way to play in week 1 and week 2. Because they're low price, they've really went off. And surprisingly, weirdly enough, very low ownerships as well for both of them. And these are going to be cash ownerships as well. So very big advantage there. But yeah, week 1, pretty easy lineup approach. Week 2, pretty easy lineup approach. And guys, just as the week progresses, the weeks progress, we're going to see that DraftKings is going to start to catch up to how they should be pricing players. They haven't done that just yet, though. And what I mean by that is like some of the key players that we've been on, Nico Collins, he hasn't really gotten a price bump, which is strange. Like 11 targets, 9 targets. That's what we expected out of him. Now, he really looked good last week against the Colts. A little bit better than I expected. But this is still a very soft price tag. Same thing for Jordan Love. Like a $100 price bump. Only $600 price bump thus far. Being such an extreme value. And guys, he did this without his number one lineup min in David Bakhtiari, his number one running back in Aaron Jones, and his number one receiver in Christian Watson. All kind of star players in the NFL. He was still able to score 20 DraftKings points in that game. I mean, this has been crazy just how well he has looked. Not shocking if you guys followed the preseason. What is shocking is the price tags that we're getting still on some players. So we do still have an edge due to the soft pricing that's out there. So without further ado, let's go ahead and clear the board and let's go ahead and get into my favorite quarterback plays for week 1. So Patrick Mahomes does get a pretty good matchup there going against the Chicago Bears, a defense that I was a little bit higher on to start the season than most people. And it seems like that might be a little bit more of a wrong call. That being said, obviously Patrick Mahomes gets a pretty good, juicy matchup here. Easily going to be his best one of the year thus far, I would say. What's funny about Patrick Mahomes is that he's been able to score 20 and 25 DraftKings points really well. His receivers and pass catchers not exactly showing up. Like, it has kind of looked ugly, the offense has, and he's still been able to get the production there DraftKings-wise. Now he gets a pretty good matchup going against the Chicago Bears. That is certainly a play that we can be paying up for. I just don't know if we're going to need to. You could easily go Josh Allen. I don't mind that. I think he'll score 20. Lamar Jackson probably going to score 20 against the Indianapolis Colts. Pretty soft matchup there. Justin Herbert gets a really nice matchup going against the Minnesota Vikings as well. I also expect him to be able to score 20 DraftKings points. But really where I think we're going to be starting out most of our builds is going to be with the Los Angeles Chargers matchup because they have looked poor defensively. I thought week 1 was because Miami just being a really good offense, and that was partially due to it. But then you had Ryan Tannehill putting up 20 DraftKings points as well against them. And so if we look at the production given up to opposing quarterbacks via the Los Angeles Chargers defense, they have given up 26.6 DraftKings points per game, which is second most. They've given up the most passing yards at 712. They had the most yards per attempt at 10.32. And for what it's worth, guys, Chicago Bears are second in that. That's also partially why I like Patrick Mahomes. But obviously Kirk Cousins has been throwing the football a ton. 44 passing attempts, 300 passing yards in both games. And these were two defenses that were supposed to be good. Now, I know the Eagles were pretty banged up defensively, but you wouldn't have expected 30 out of Kirk Cousins. This is a great matchup. To me, he's going to be the starting point at quarterback for us in week 3. And then from there, where do we want to go? Because I don't know if we need to exactly play Kirk Cousins because we do have 2 other pretty good quarterback options. And I do want to mention Dak Prescott, a separate thought. I think we're going to get exactly what we got out of him last week, pretty much. This is going to be, I think, an easier matchup for teams as the season progresses. That being said, the Dallas Cowboys have been impressive thus far. And for Dak to really go off and break his slate, we need a little bit better of a matchup. Now, the Cardinals have looked much better than anyone expected, so we could get there. I just worry about his ceiling in a game that could end up also being a blowout. Then for me, guys, I really like Deshaun Watson this game. We know with the Tennessee Titans, it seems to be that you just can't run the football against them. Okay, so with that, maybe we just end up looking at Deshaun Watson at a very cheap price tag in a juicy matchup going against the Titans. The Titans give up about 8.24 yards per attempt. They've given up the 5th most passing yards, and they're tied for 24th amongst easy matchup. So 8th for easiest, whatever way you want to look at it. Deshaun Watson, and some people are going to hear this take and probably shake their head, but he looked sharp last week. Okay, take away the turnovers. Don't get me wrong, the fumbles were kind of sloppy there. Take away those, he had a pretty sharp game. And if you take away 2 of those, he gets 16 DraftKings points, probably also gets a little bit more production than 2. But if you're telling me his floor against a Pittsburgh defense that, did look terrible in week 1, but that we all expected to be good, if he can score around 15 DraftKings points against them, that's going to be intriguing to me. Okay, threw the ball 40 times in that game. And yes, the completion percentage was low. I get that. He made a lot of tough throws. And given the fact that we expect this matchup to be a little bit easier, I expect Deshaun Watson to be able to give us 20 DraftKings points. Now, I think Kirk Cousins has a higher ceiling, and the price difference between the two is not great enough for me to consider Watson over Cousins. But then again, we also are getting a very cheap price tag in someone like Jordan Love. I don't get it. I know I'm a Packers fan, and I get that that's kind of why this seemed like an obvious thing for me, as opposed to others that don't pay attention, especially for fans. Like, I do think fantasy experts should have been able to see this coming if they paid attention during last season, during the preseason. I don't know. It's a head scratcher, and I don't really get why his ownership. I get why his ownership has been as low as it has, but at the same time, I don't get why the pricing hasn't risen, and it's because of the ownership. I get that as well. He has just looked good, and he's looked good without his weapon. If he gets Bakhtiari back, which kind of seems like he should, Watson potentially back as well, maybe playing 50% of the snaps, and Aaron Jones back, which probably won't occur. But if that does occur, he becomes much more interesting of a play at this price tag. It's funny because we have not seen his ceiling yet, because he's throwing to 6th-round draft picks. He's throwing to rookies that are playing in their second NFL game, and he's putting up this production against the Atlanta Falcons defense. That's pretty good. And now this matchup with the Saints might scare you. I don't know what to make of the Saints defense. Like, yes, they have looked good, but they really haven't been tested. And I do still think Matt LaFleur is going to scheme up some plays, some touchdown plays, and Jordan Love's going to deliver on them. I don't expect him to get to 20 points. Guys, if he does again, either Matt LaFleur is going to be the coach of the year or Jordan Love's going to be in the MVP conversation, because that would just be shock. But I do think he can give us around 15 to 20 DraftKings. I just don't expect like a ceiling game. Still, at that price tag, certainly someone we need to be looking at, but I do think we are prioritizing Kirk Cousins. Then for what's worth, just to call it out, like if Desmond Ridder is going to be rushing the football 10 times again, someone maybe we're looking at. And then CJ Stroud, I mentioned last week, I'm like, he didn't look like great, but he looked sharp on his pass attempts. And then last week had a really good game. Part of the reason why I like Tank Dell as a value play last week, and why I continue going back to the well with Nico Collins, is CJ Stroud looks sharp. And a lot of that was due to soft coverage, a little bit of prevent defense at the end of the game, but he was able to take advantage of that. He didn't mess that up. You can't say the same for someone like Justin Fields, which, just real quickly, guys, this is a little bit of fluff. What is going on with his price tag? Why is it still up there? I don't get it. Like, there's no way we can say that Justin Fields should be that much higher price than Watson at this point. It's a head scratcher. All right, enough of that. Let's go on and get into the running back. All right, so the thing I want to start out with here with the running backs is pointing out that we are really waiting on a bunch of injury news. Like, Austin Eckler sat out last week. If he plays, he's in a very nice matchup. If he sits, Josh Kelly is going to be in a really good matchup as well. And the best part about this play is that I told you guys to basically fade Josh Kelly. I said the only way you're playing Josh Kelly is if you're going to be even weight on him. You don't want to be overweight on him. The matchup was difficult, okay? The talent was there. He had the 14 total opportunities in that game as well. I've mentioned this a bunch. You want to pass on the Titans. Well, Minnesota defense, they've been giving us some rushing production. And so if we are getting Josh Kelly again at this soft price tag, but in an actual good matchup, in an actual spot that we really want him going out of our way to target him, at a much lower ownership now, that's extremely interesting to me. Okay, he played in 78% of the snaps, which we would take that from a running back. We want a little bit more target share, only 3% target share with that one target. And Dotson kind of looked okay, Spiller okay, but Josh Kelly's going to be the play, I would say, value-wise this week. But we also get a lot of other good running backs in some good spots. So that's where, like, Austin Eckler, to me, is a little bit more difficult to pay up for. And then we also have Tony Pollard in a good spot going against the Arizona Cardinals. I have the ODDSJAM sportsbook view pulled up here on my screen. And if we look at that game, the Cowboys are 12-point favorites in that game, okay? Game script-wise, what does that tell us to do? That probably tells us to be on Tony Pollard. And he only played in 63% of the snaps last week. They didn't need him to play a lot, but he still had a ton of production. Over 30 opportunities in that game. Week 1 against the Giants, also a blowout. Didn't have to play much. 17 opportunities in that game. And he hasn't really had a chance to break the slate because last week he didn't have any touchdowns. The target share was there though. 22% target share. Second most amongst the team. Given the matchup, given the game script, you do expect him to have a really good game. And so for now, I have found myself ending up on Tony Pollard at the running back spot for my RB1 position. I just think that's going to be a safe pay up, but also a pay up that we want to be going out of our way to make. And then from there, I like the idea of paying up for Bijan Robinson as well. We saw him really dominate that game. I would say if there was one person to give credit that victory to, it's actually the head coach, but Bijan Robinson would be next in line then. He really made some big plays for them when they were needed, and he looked really good doing it as well. He had 19 carries to, I think it was 16 for Tyler Algier, and he played in over 70% of the snaps as well, closer to 80% of the snaps last week. This matchup with Detroit, I think, is going to be one that as the season progresses, we're going to like more and more and more. Right now, that hasn't exactly been the case, but they have given up enough production in the passing game to warrant Bijan Robinson as an option. If he's going to be getting around 20 opportunities in this matchup, I like it. So for now, I have just been putting him into my builds. The issue that I have with him as a play is that we have way too many good running back options on this slate. Okay, look at Travis Etienne going against that Houston Texans rush defense. It's a little bit more improved, I would say. I wouldn't say that. Zach Moss really went off against the Houston Texans in week 2, but he should have had a better game. His running style was super annoying. There were so many times where if he just hits the hole, it's a freaking 10-yard game, 20-yard gain instead of like a 5-yard, 7-yard gain. Like, he is just pitter-pattering around in the hole. I was literally in my head, I'm like, man, if someone like Travis Etienne where he sees the hole and gets there, like, he would have probably had 200 rushing yards. I'm not even joking. Like, it was super annoying. And like, Zach Moss is getting a bunch of hype because of his running style. It's like Le'Veon Bell. I'm like, no, he's running into linemen. It's making it look harder than it is. And so that's my long way of saying, like, dang, Travis Etienne could go off. Now, he did end up getting leg cramps in that game. A lot of people throughout the week last week, rightfully so, were calling out the weather in that game with the extreme heat. For me, guys, I don't look at weather until Sunday morning. I want you guys to know that. To me, there's been too many times where I'll create like a weird bias on games or on plays because of weather. And I just find that I naturally adjust to the weather news much better the day of rather than a couple days before. But he's someone that last week didn't play that much in the third quarter. Didn't get that much production in the third quarter. I don't think he played at all in the fourth quarter. That's the worry. This matchup is definitely juicy. And given the solid pricing, he's someone I do think we can be looking at this week as well. And guys, he's still playing like 72% of the snaps as well. Like, he was still involved in the offensive game. For what it's worth, if for whatever reason he sits, it would be Tank Bigsby, who played about 20% of the snaps. Kenneth Walker is seemingly getting a pretty good matchup there against the Carolina Panthers. His yards per carry are going to be low in that game against Detroit because he had 2 really short yardage touchdowns. He had a lot of short yardage carries. That's kind of why that stat can be misleading. He looked good. He looked good in week 1. He looked good in week 2. Certainly someone you could be playing for a price discount play. But guys, my biggest issue on the slate is choosing between these 3 running backs, and maybe we just save up at the running back position and play all 3 of them. Let's start with it. So you got Javonte Williams, and this one is going to be much more of a GPP only play. He actually played in 46% of snaps compared to 49 for Samaje Perine. But once again, I thought Javonte Williams looked much better than I really expected. The matchup with Washington was a little bit of a hesitation, especially as the week went on, especially as we had better running back plays. But now he gets a really good matchup going against Miami, a team that has given up 30 points per game to opposing running backs, to that running back position. That's going to be intriguing to me. A team that's given up the 3rd most rushing yards to opposing teams. That's all looking like a good spot for, heck, maybe even Samaje Perine at a cheaper price tag. Then we got Josh Kelly. I kind of mentioned him a little bit already. Josh Kelly, I think he's going to be going under-owned because he disappointed with his matchup against the Titans. And I think we can just go on and plug and play him. Like, the process, I feel like was slightly wrong for people, but he still played in the amount of snaps you'd want him to play. You'd want him to get a little bit more opportunities. But if Austin Eckler's out, given this matchup, I do think we can be looking at Josh Kelly. Then that being said, Isaiah Pacheco does get a pretty good matchup going against the Chicago Bears. I would say Pacheco and also Javonte Williams, more GPP plays. But that offense for the Chiefs really started to look better with the more work that Pacheco got. I don't love Pacheco as a runner, but it is going to be a nicer matchup going against the Chicago Bears. Then from there, I do want to call out Jerome Ford. People are going to see this matchup with the Tennessee Titans, and they're going to say, well, Josh Kelly couldn't go off against them. Like, they're going to make the conclusion that this is the exact same situation as last week. And I'm not going to say that they're wrong, because I don't think that they are. But at the same time, with that Chargers offense, I don't think we're going to see as many pass targets go to the running back as we expected at the start, especially with Keenan Allen healthy. We saw that directly correlate last year, and I know it's a different offensive coordinator, but that seems to be true again this season. Now, Jerome Ford is someone that can get involved in the passing game. And guys, wow, Jerome Ford, hopefully he has took advantage of that showdown play. He was a free square at like $400 on that showdown play. One that I called out, one that was like, man, this is just a weird price point. Like, there's no way we can't play him. And sure, we benefited from the Nick Chubb injury, but hopefully he has took advantage of that, because we don't get many price discounts like that. I mean, it's the start of the season. That's going to happen. That was strange. And so a lot of people are saying that the Cleveland Browns should be bringing in a running back, Kareem Hunt, Leonard Fournette. I'm like, no, they literally, or like De'Aaron Hurst-Johnson, they should bring him back. No, they literally let go of those players because Jerome Ford is that guy. Jerome Ford is good. We saw that last night. It was just so funny seeing those stupid tweets out there. I'm like, guys, there is a reason why they are gone. It's because Jerome Ford is better at this point of his career than those players. And so at this cheap price tag, I do think we're going to get a healthy workload, but I also think we are going to have some design touches for him in the passing game, whether that be screens or just a couple of checkdowns to him via Deshaun Watson. What we're going to see is we're going to end up on at least one Cleveland Browns player. All right, so we have our first 3 players into our build. That might change, but let's go ahead and get into the receivers on this slate. So we're going to hate it at this price, but Justin Jefferson is the correct play. Just given how bad that Chargers defense has looked, I feel like there's no way for us not to end up on Justin Jefferson this week, especially if we're playing Kirk Cousins at the quarterback position. We need to be playing Justin Jefferson. The Chargers as a team have given up the most yards per target at 13.4. They have a pretty easy catch rate as well for receivers, 4th highest. They've given up the most touchdowns. They've given up the most yards. The receptions are down a little bit because of the air yards. All things lead to this being a smash spot for Justin Jefferson. To me, that's probably the most simple play that we're going to get on this slate, just given that matchup. And yes, I am prioritizing him over Diggs, over Tyreek Hill. That just feels correct. I will say CeeDee Lamb and Keenan Allen at their price tags, I do feel like they are still going to be really good options for you. I think we are going to see CeeDee Lamb see this high target share like he saw last year. That game against the Giants just got out of hand fast. 2 defensive touchdowns just really throws off the flow of the game. He still managed to have a good game in that game. I think you can make a good argument that CeeDee Lamb's the best receiver in the league. I feel like that's a hot take that I have. And obviously there's Justin Jefferson, there's Tyreek Hill, there's Devontae Adams. But I feel like he should certainly be in the conversation. He just every single week delivers. And a little bit of that is due to the connection with Dak Prescott, but fruitful. It works. The question is, do we need to pay up for them? I don't know if we do, because once again, we are getting some soft prices. So I find Michael Pittman to be an extremely interesting play at the receiver position this week as well. He has seen 11 and 12 targets. He played 98% of the snaps last week. He had a 39% target share, which is massive. He almost had 50% of the team's air yards as well. And he looked good last week as well. Like, there's a lot of plays that probably shouldn't have been made that he made. And I'm going to say the same for Nico Collins in that same game from last week. He made a lot of plays that were impressive plays. But at this price tag for Michael Pittman, that's certainly going to be interesting. And if you look at the matchup with the Ravens, they have actually given up the 2nd most targets to opposing receivers, while giving up the 5th most points to opposing receivers. So right now, I've been going with Michael Pittman as like a soft price point kind of safe play. And so like right now, just given our receivers, I think we're locking in at least 20 targets thus far. Now, I will say, holy crap, how do we not play Amari Cooper at this price? Right? I know he was banged up. Last week, he wasn't expected to play, and then played a lot, getting 10 targets in that game, having a highly productive game. I just don't see how we don't end up on Amari Cooper going against the Tennessee Titans. I already mentioned just how good of a play I thought Watson could be. Jerome Ford's at a very interesting price. Amari Cooper should really have a good game. And I feel like we're getting this price because obviously he was banged up, wasn't expected to play, and because of a rainy situation in that Cincinnati versus Cleveland game in week 1. Like, this is the perfect storm for an elite value option at the receiver position. I think if we're playing Cooper, if we're playing Pittman, if we're playing Jefferson, we are locking in 30 targets among those 3. And then from there, like, I don't think we can ignore Michael Thomas. He is the receiver number 2 in that offense. I think that's been pretty clear. Chris Olave is the number 1, but he is still going to get a lot of targets. And the matchup with Green Bay isn't as nice as you would want, but still not terrible. We still have Nico Collins at such a strange price tag. I don't really get what's going on here. And I just think for now, this is going to continue to be a plug and play until he gets the correct pricing. He should be, and I said this in week 1, he should be like $1,000 more. He is their number 1. This is what we expected. Now, I didn't expect him to look as good as he did. Guys, he made some very nice like diving catches. He did have one bad drop, but like very, very impressive. He's kind of just a possession receiver. No, last week it seemed like he took a little bit of a next step. And so for me, guys, I'm going to already tell you this. I want to be ending up on those 4 receivers as much as possible. I think that's just going to be the best line of path that you can go with for yourself in week 3. Now, I do want to just mention some other receivers that we have that we could potentially play as well. If Mike Williams is going to continue to operate in the slot like he has been, this is certainly an extremely good price tag for him as well. Like, if you don't feel the need to pay for Justin Jefferson, this would be a great pay down play. He didn't have as much production in week 1 as you would have thought going against Miami there. A little bit of that's due to him being banged up. They were checking him for a concussion. Last week, they made an emphasis on getting him the football, and I kind of thought it was at the detriment of the offense. I don't know, it just seemed weird having Mike Williams operate in the middle of the field as much as he did, but we saw the targets were there, the production was there as well. You give him a touchdown or so and he could really break the slate. This matchup with Minnesota is going to be one that we're going to want to chase, and I just like the cheap price tag that we are getting on Mike Williams as well. Very good target share type of play as well. Another play that I think we're going to be looking at as well is going to be Zay Flowers. He really popped on film last week. I know the production wasn't as high. This was my worry with Mark Andrews coming back, is that we saw a lot of short manufactured touches go to Zay Flowers, kind of taking over for that production that we see with Mark Andrews. But OBJ is currently banged up, and if he sits, I do think we're going to be looking at Zay Flowers a little bit. Cortland Sutton at a cheap price tag. Romeo Doubs at a cheap price tag. Josh Reynolds is certainly someone you could look at. Once again, at a cheap price tag. Adam Thielen certainly had a productive game in week 2. He's probably going to be someone that draws a lot of ownership just due to that price. I'm not going to say it's wrong as well because they did seem to have a connection. I wouldn't be shocked though if it flips and it's DJ Chark this week instead. Tank Dell played a lot of snaps. Part of that's due to blow up, but he looked good doing it, guys. So he's going to be another good value play that we are looking at as well. And so we'll see. I only have $800 left over. Obviously, we're going to have to make some adjustments to the builds, but let's go ahead and get into my favorite tight end plays. So for me, guys, my typical strategy at the tight end position is really to try to punt for like the lowest price tight end play that's going to be able to at least return 2x. Obviously, we're always hoping for 3x. And so the first one that really stood out to me pricing wise was Zach Ertz. He continues to get targeted heavily, continues to produce as well. Now he hasn't had a massive game because the yards aren't exactly there and he hasn't had a touchdown, but 8 targets, 10 targets, that is something that I don't really think we can ignore. He is playing a decent amount of snaps as well, but the thing with it is when he's on the field, he is getting targeted heavily. And for me, the one player that kind of sticks out to me, given what we want to look at in terms of having a nice floor at the tight end position, is Durham Smythe, especially if Jalen Waddle is out. That could just force maybe a little bit of production to Smythe's way. And really the unfortunate thing with him is that he's mostly been doing cardio. Guys, he has the 4th most routes run among tight ends, and he has played the most snaps among tight ends as well at 98%. He also ranks 5th in total targets as well. So just really given the price that we're getting on him, I think it's going to be a solid play for us. Now, I do feel like I need to talk about this as well. Taysom Hill. If we get news that Keandre Miller and Jamal Williams are both out, I do think we need to be looking at Taysom Hill as well. It's kind of unfortunate given how that game went, because now we almost certainly have to be looking at Taysom Hill as a okay punt play at tight end as well, because he could just get work both receiving, rushing, and maybe a little bit of quarterback as well. It's unfortunate. This is something that we'll just need to tune into as we progress. And then just looking at defense, guys, by now you should probably know that I'm just going to be paying down at defense, especially at the start of the week. Obviously, if we have salary left over, we can go ahead and make an adjustment. But time and time again, we see that it really doesn't matter which defense you end up on. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, I played Dallas defense last week. They dominated. That was like a $2,000 price difference. You could have easily ended up on a lot better plays due to that. Now, you might make the argument, well, Eric, I listened to your video. I played Tank Dell, who was your favorite value play. That's great. Good on you. Most people are not going to do that. And so for me at the start of the week, I just don't care. Not even thinking about it. We're going to put Chicago Bears defense in there for now. If we have the salary left over, obviously we can use that to maybe pay up for Colts defense or something like that. Then I'm fine with it. And obviously as injury news comes out, we can make some adjustments as it comes. But here we go. So we see this. We have $4,000 that we need to find savings on. Okay, this is where it gets difficult, but this is also where I'm probably just looking at some of those value options at the running back position. I already mentioned that I do think Joshua Kelly is going to be in a great spot, especially if Austin Eckler's out. And this is the tough part for me, guys. I'm going to have to make an if-then statement because I want to play this lineup. I want to tell you guys how this lineup did. So I'm going to give an if-then statement. So if Austin Eckler sits, we're going to play Josh Kelly. If he plays, I'm just going to go Jerome Ford. Okay, that's going to be what I'm going to do. All right, so there we go. We replaced Tony Pollard with Joshua Kelly. Hopefully we get enough production out of Kelly, 15 DraftKings points, whereas Tony Pollard could go for 20. And I do still think we need to go down from Bijan Robinson. Unfortunately, I think he's going to be a very strong play. And guys, this is kind of what I mean about, don't worry about defense until the last part of your build, because I could easily see us just going Javonte Williams, going Pacheco for now, or even Jerome Ford, and then paying up a little bit at defense, because that's just kind of how the lineup path worked its way out. And I will say that doesn't feel like a mistake for this build specifically. It's more of a shoulder shrug play. I mention these all the time. These are players where if you end up on them to close out your build, you are fine with it. And given the salary that we have right now, I am kind of fine with it. I don't know if I am. Mostert, I don't mind it. He played about the same percent of snaps last week as he did the first week, playing about 74% of the snaps. Last week in week 1, he should have had 2 touchdowns. I showed you guys the Ahmed missed block. That was a walking touchdown. And then obviously last week, he ended up with 2 touchdowns. I do think we're going to see him get around 15 total opportunities per game. So I think week 1 was a little bit lower than expected. The matchup with Denver is also one that doesn't scare us. And maybe even with, maybe if Waddle misses, that's not a bad play. And now, guys, this is exactly it. Like with the softer pricing, this is where it does become more difficult to make the lineups you want. There is a little bit of give and take with this build now. Whereas week 1 and week 2, we could basically make the best lineups we want possible. So here's the first look build. Like last week, I'm going to give you guys 2 though. Last week, the second lineup that I gave you guys, I think it hit like 142 or so, ended up cashing for you guys in both GPPs and single entries as well. So I want to give you guys another one as well. This one is more just me trying to put an emphasis on getting those running backs into our builds. And so, let's say Justin Jefferson doesn't break the slate. This one I like as well, just because we are still getting Pittman, Williams, Nico, and Amari Cooper, guys that should all probably combine for around 40 targets. And then we're getting the top 2 running backs, I would say, on the slate. We're still getting Jordan Love at a good price tag. Obviously, here I was able to afford to pay up for the Cardinals defense. Now with this build, maybe instead you want to get to Luke Musgrave, then obviously you could just go with the Bears defense. But I think Smythe is the correct option here. And then so I'll real quickly just show you guys a pivot that you can make from this one. Obviously we could go with Watson at the quarterback position. That seems like an easy pivot. Then we can pay up a little bit more at the running back position. We could get to Travis Etienne if he's going to play. That's a build that I really like as well. We get a little bit of a stack there with Watson and Cooper. And then lastly, what you could do is obviously then just go down to Jordan Love. You got more money left over. You can maybe thin Derrick Henry, who had a higher snap share in week 2. As expected, a little bit more of a difficult matchup. And just real quickly, I just noticed this. The top 2 running backs in the draft are going off against each other. That's fun. That could be a really fun narrative to watch. And then here's just another kind of small little build that you can make it adjustment-wise. Obviously still going with ETN, but then you can afford to pay up for maybe a little bit better of a defense if you guys want to. But that's going to be all for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the coverage. Make sure to give a like and subscribe. If you guys want access to the 9-to-5 tools that are available for both NFL DFS, PGA DFS, and all the props content, make sure to be clicking the link in the description below. Let's have a good slate. Good luck in week 3. Hopefully we can keep it going, guys. Let's keep cashing. All right, thanks for watching.